Today, we're taking a bit of a pause from our podcast and diving into an essential concept from Dr. Henry Cloud's work called the law of responsibility. This principle can transform how we lead and manage others, especially when we're faced with a challenging situation where boundaries and accountability are crucial. By understanding and applying the law of responsibility, we can create healthier, more effective teams and organizations. This is about empowering your people, ensuring they grow through their own experiences, and fostering a culture of accountability. All right, so to get started, let's lay a foundation to make sure we understand what the law of responsibility is all about. According to Dr. Cloud, the law of responsibility teaches us that while we're called to help one another, we're not meant to live someone else's life for them. Each person must take responsibility for their own actions, thoughts, behaviors, talent, values, beliefs, and growth. As leaders, we're responsible to our team members, but not for them. When we take on someone else's responsibilities, we may unintentionally hinder their growth and perpetuate a cycle of irresponsibility. Our role as leaders is to guide, not do the work for others. As managers and leaders, it can be pretty tempting to step in and rescue our team members when they struggle, especially when we care deeply about their success. But like I said, when we take on their responsibilities, we deny them the opportunity to learn and grow from their experiences. This can lead to dependency, lack of accountability, and even resentment over time. Let me share a situation I encountered with a manager. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah leads a team that often experiences internal conflicts. But instead of addressing these conflicts head on with honest feedback, Sarah felt it was her responsibility to manage the emotions of her team members. She found herself constantly trying to figure out how to diffuse the tension, how to manage negative feelings, and basically keep everyone happy. As you can imagine, the result was that Sarah herself became pretty overwhelmed, frustrated, and emotionally drained. This came up a few times in our coaching session, and finally, she started to admit that she was resenting her team for even escalating issues to her. She was feeling like they were adding to her stress rather than managing their own conflicts. It took a while for Sarah to realize that she was taking on responsibilities that weren't hers. Instead of managing her team's emotions, Sarah needed to manage her own emotional responses. She had to learn that it was her responsibility to maintain her composure while providing honest and constructive feedback and allow her team members to experience and work through their own emotions, even if those emotions are negative. Through coaching, Sarah learned the importance of self-regulating and giving her team the most loving and honest and growth-oriented feedback possible. She also recognized that by trying to avoid conflict, she was missing opportunities to build stronger, more honest relationships within her team. In the end, Sarah understood that her responsibility was for herself and to her team. Her responsibility was not for her team. It was not to manage their emotions, but it was to support their growth by allowing them to face the consequences of their actions and emotions while also holding them accountable when necessary. All right. So if you're dealing with this as a leader, I want to give you some practical ways you can apply this principle. There's 3 that quickly come to mind. One is setting boundaries, the other is empowering others, and then lastly, addressing irresponsibility. When it comes to setting boundaries, one of the most important actions you can take as a leader is to set clear boundaries. This means defining what are you responsible for and what your team members are responsible for. For example, you can support them in developing their skills, but they must take ownership of their performance. Another example, empowering others. So empowering your team by holding them accountable for their actions, this doesn't mean abandoning them in times of need, but rather helping them see the connection between their actions and the outcomes they experience. Encourage them to solve problems, seek out resources, and take initiative. And again, the third practical application is addressing irresponsibility. When you notice patterns of irresponsibility, it's crucial to have candid conversations. This might mean saying something like, I've noticed that you haven't been meeting your deadlines. Let's talk about what's going on and how can we address this. However, it's important you take responsibility for getting back on track. So you can see in that statement, you're providing the feedback, you're calling out the issue, you're offering support, but you're also holding them responsible. All right, so let's take a moment to sort of step back and reflect a little bit. Are there areas where you've taken on responsibilities that belong to your team members? How might this be impacting their growth and your effectiveness as a leader? I'm going to pause here because I want you to think about that. Another thought process, consider a situation where you've had to set boundaries with a team member. What challenges did you face and how did it impact your team dynamics? Feel free to share on social media with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. We'd love to hear your comments about how you've approached this or things that you've started to realize that you're doing where you're learning to be more accountable for yourself and to others. All right, so here's the deal. When I talk about this in coaching, I often get two concerns that are raised. One, what if they fail? And how do I balance all of this? So let me address the what if they fail. That's a valid concern. However, failure is often a critical part of growth. By allowing your team members to experience the consequences of their actions, you're not abandoning them. You're giving them the opportunity to learn, adapt, and ultimately become stronger contributors. Now, I have many times in my career as a manager and a leader have allowed my team to fail. However, I don't do it in a vacuum. I will contract with my manager. I will, contract with clients. Sometimes it's an external focus, but I will either with a client say, hey, this is something we're trying. Here's a secondary person that's on this team. That's a backup for this individual, yada, yada, yada. Sometimes I've given a discount so that they're not feeling like, oh, I'm paying top dollar and I have someone who's learning. Internally, I will work with my management and say, here's how I'm trying to grow the team. Part of growing this team means I need to create situations where they experience and they learn, and that experiencing and learning needs to have some space for failure. Here's the backup plan. Here's how we'll catch them. Here's the level of failure that we're willing to allow it to go to, and here's where absolutely we will not get to. Just contracting with my senior managers so that they want to understand that this is on purpose and two are supportive of the process. I don't put people in situations where they're going to fail and it's high stakes or it's, a top account. It's with the president of the organization. I'm not trying to destroy people's careers. I'm not trying to limit people's mobility and growth. None of that. What I'm talking about is contained, controlled environments in which I'm equipping my employees the opportunity to try on new things, giving them enough space to see what works and what doesn't work, and enough room and cushion in that space that it can absorb failure. All right, so that's the what if they fail. The other side of this is how do I balance support and responsibility? A bit of a continuation of the what if it fails. It's important to balance both being supportive and holding others accountable. Offering guidance, resources, encouragement, all of that is about support, but ensuring that they own the task and responsibilities, that's going to be key. So as I mentioned earlier, it's one thing to provide access to training or access to skill building. It's another for the individual to take the responsibility to prioritize their time in the day in which they actually complete it or they attend the session, or to actually prioritize moving their calendar around or finding time where they actually practice and build up that skill so that it starts to enhance their performance. So you can support as a manager. That is definitely your responsibility to your team. But your team has to be responsible for themselves and taking ownership of what changes need to be made so that that performance difference starts to be seen. All right. In conclusion, the law of responsibility is about creating a culture where every individual is empowered to take charge of their own actions, behaviors, and growth. As leaders, our role is to guide and support them, not carry their burdens for them. Remember, leadership is about developing others, not just achieving outcomes. By applying the law of responsibility, you not only help your team members grow, but also create a stronger, more resilient organization. Again, I'd love to hear how you're applying these principles in your leadership journey. Share your thoughts and experiences in our comment section on LinkedIn, Instagram, on YouTube. It's great chatting with you. Looking forward to our next conversation.